What If Alec Didn't Rub Salt in the Wound by Shauna Cannon. The new Kids Plus weather girl is... Aurora held her breath, hoping with all her might that her name would be called. Mireille! As the crowd went wild, Aurora's heart dropped like a stone, her face contorting into a sneer of anger. She'd worked so hard for this. She deserved to win. Beside her, the host, Alec, gave her a little pat on the shoulder. "Don't take it so hard," he said with a good-natured smile. "You did great, and there are other stations that need weather girls." Aurora was too angry and disappointed to give much thought to what he said. As Alec went back to clapping for Mireille, Aurora stormed off the stage and out into the hall. It was a lonely walk to the elevator, and Alec's words had begun to sink in. She had done well, and she knew she had what it took to be a weather girl. If Kids Plus didn't want her, maybe she could contact one of the other stations. Or maybe they'd contact her. Her thoughts were interrupted when the elevator jerked to a stop. The lights went dark except for an eerie blue light, and a small, fluttering thing wormed its way between the closed elevator doors. An Akuma! Aurora realized with horror as the black butterfly squirmed out and fluttered in her direction. Her anger at losing must have called it here. She opened her parasol and thrust it between herself and the Akuma, but that didn't help at all. A moment after she watched the central spire of her parasol turn dark, dark blue, she heard a voice in her head. "Yes, you should have won." Hawkmoth. He was talking to her. The Akuma had made contact with her. But maybe she didn't need to stop fighting yet. Aurora could feel her anger rising back up, but she knew that was just Hawkmoth prodding at her, trying to make her join him. She fought it by remembering Alec's encouragement to her and her own resolution to see about a weather girl position at a rival network. She needed to look forward, not back. "I should have won," Aurora told Hawkmoth. "But I didn't, and letting you use me won't change that. Go away, I won't help you." She flung her parasol to the other side of the elevator, as far as she could get it. She didn't feel the creepy presence in her head go away immediately, but after a few seconds, Hawkmoth seemed to realize his window of opportunity to akumatize her had passed along with her anger. Without a word to her, his presence vanished, the Akuma left her parasol, and the elevator got moving again. Leaving Manon behind at the carousel with Alia, Marinette ran to the fountain where Adrian's photo shoot was happening. She stumbled to a stop, barely catching herself. "I heard you needed a girl?" The photographer gave her a look. "Ah, yes, you'll do nicely." He grabbed Marinette by the arm and tossed her toward Adrian. Marinette cried out, flailed, and was caught up in Adrian's arms. "Sorry about him," Adrian said, his voice so soft and gentle that it sent goosebumps up her arms. "Is Alia feeling okay?" "Yeah, she's fine." Marinette's face and body felt like they were on fire. Adrian released her, but didn't get too far away. "I'm glad you're here. The shoot was getting really boring." I'm glad to hear, too," Marinette stammered. "Give me magic," shouted the photographer. "Adrian, she is your muse, your inspiration. You must hold her like she holds your heart in her hands. Look at her like you've never seen anything more beautiful." Adrian gently put an arm around Marinette's waist and smiled at her with eyes that she could drown in. Her knees gave out, and he caught her, pulling her closer to him. "You okay?" he asked with a chuckle. It was a miracle that the photographer wasn't yelling at her for ruining his shot by turning her face entirely red. "Totally. You're fine. I'm fine." He laughed again as the photographer snapped shots and shouted nonsensical directions. "If I didn't know better, Marinette, I think you'd fallen for me." For a split second, his smile turned into a flirty grin as he winked, and Marinette thought she might pass out right there. She was about to blurt out an instinctive denial, but then he spun and dipped her. She grabbed his shoulders, their eyes locked, and what came out of her mouth was, "What if I did?" His eyes widened in surprise, and then crinkled in amusement. Raising her up, he said, "You wouldn't be the first girl to be helpless to my many charms. Try not to fall too hard, though. You might hurt yourself." Then he kissed the back of her hand as Marinette gaped like a fish. Who was this boy, and what had he done with Adrian? It was as if he'd been possessed by Cat Noir, and that was a truly disturbing thought. Beyond that, his reaction made Marinette realize that he didn't see her that way at all, or he might have taken her response as something more than a joke. Well, she'd just have to try harder. and maybe get to know him better to figure out how this flirty, jokey side fit into the sweet, wholesome boy she thought she knew. The day after the contest results, Aurora caught up with Alia in the school courtyard. "Hey, Alia." "Hey, Aurora." "Oh, I'm sorry you didn't win the contest." "I'm already over it," Aurora said with a wave. "But I thought you might want to interview me for your lady blog." Alia cocked her head. "Why?" Aurora gave her a coy smirk. "Because I was upset after I lost, and Hawkmoth tried to akumatize me, but I told him to get lost." "What?" Alia gasped. "That's amazing! You bet I want to interview you." Beside Alia, her friend Marinette was absolutely gobsmacked. "You fought off Hawkmoth?" Aurora shrugged, playing it cool. "I wasn't as mad by the time the Akuma got to me, so his offer wasn't that tempting. So I told him to shove it." Marinette still hadn't picked her jaw up off the floor. "That's possible? This changes everything!" "Does it?" asked Aurora. Marinette snapped into action, grabbing Aurora by the shoulders. "You need to tell everyone what you did. If people know that's possible, maybe more people can resist getting akumatized. And if his kumas aren't as effective, maybe Hawkmoth will come out where Ladybug and Catmar can actually fight him." Aurora shared a glance with Alia. "Is that really possible?" "Worth a try, girl," said Alia. "Interview right here after school? I'll bring the platform, you bring the secrets to fighting off a supervillain?" Aurora smiled. "You got it." "Let's see Murray beat that."